So, I was watching the NBA the other night, and there was a game between the Suns and the Cavs that was very interesting. Because in the second half, the Suns used a defensive tactic that's been more common in the NBA the last several years, and it stymied the Cavs and completely flipped the game. Now, before we get to this tactic, let's first set the stage. It was March 11th, and the Suns were playing in Cleveland, and the Cavs were missing several key players, including Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley. But it didn't matter early on. The Cavs got on an offensive roll, largely due to their spread pick and roll. Here's their first play of the game, as Darius Garland has it, and he'll come off the pick to his left. The Cavs center, Jarrett Allen, will screen and roll to the basket, and with three shooters spreading the floor, the Cavs execute the pick and roll to perfection. And you'll notice that Jusuf Nurkic, the Suns center, is guarding Allen, and he'll be in a drop, so he's dropped way below the level of the screen, and this allows Garland here to come off the pick and get a clean look at a pull-up three with Nurkic back near the paint. The Cavs were able to get whatever they wanted, and here it's Caris LeVert who attacks Nurkic in the drop, and LeVert gets to a floater. What's happened in the NBA is the spread pick and roll has just become so hard to defend. And so here the Suns are more aggressive. They'll have their backup center, Drew Eubanks, defend the pick and roll with a hard show, but now you're putting two on the ball. And so Damian Jones here is able to roll and get behind Eubanks, and the Suns' three off-ball players are so worried about giving up a three, no one helps and tags Jones on the roll, and Jones gets a layup. And so in the first half, the Cavs scored 70 points, largely due to their pick and roll attack, and they led 70-63. And so in terms of how the Suns wanted to defend the pick and roll in the second half, head coach Frank Vogel had some decisions to make. And let's take a look at his options. For one, he could stick with drop coverage, which is what the Suns primarily used in the first half, and Vogel can simply demand better execution. He can adjust the pick and roll coverage in a significant way and potentially use more blitz in the second half, for example. He could also go zone and change things up in a big way. Another option would be to bench Nurkic and start small in the second half by moving Durant from power forward to center. This is more of a playoff adjustment, and the idea here is that Durant is much quicker than Nurkic, who's a slow center. So now you can switch the pick and roll with Durant at center, because unlike Nurkic, Durant can switch onto guards and defend one-on-one. But Nurkic is one of the Suns' better players, and Vogel didn't want to sit him. So instead, he opted to use a tactic that is very simple, yet can be very disruptive to offenses. He decided to change the matchups by putting his center on a perimeter player. He took Nurkic off of Allen. And if we look at the matchups in the first half, they were very conventional. And notice how Nurkic was on the Cavs center Allen. In the second half, they changed things up. Notice how Nurkic is now on Okoro, Durant is guarding Allen, and Durant is a very versatile defender. And to make things work matchup-wise, Booker is guarding Niang, who's an undersized power forward. On the first play of the second half, we see Nurkic is on Okoro and Durant is on Allen. So now, Phoenix can switch any ball screen or handoff with Allen as the screener. So here, Allen hands it off to LeVert, and the Suns can simply switch it with Durant taking LeVert, and Durant can keep the ball in front on a switch, and here the Suns get a stop. The Suns put Nurkic on Okoro because Okoro is a mediocre shooter who only takes 3 threes per game. Okoro is shooting 39% from 3, but he's primarily a corner shooter, which makes him less dangerous. Now, NBA coaches aren't clueless, and on the next half-court possession, what do you think Cleveland is going to do? They're going to use Okoro as the screener so they can attack Nurkic in the pick and roll, right? Teams don't want to see switches. And so as Okoro sets the screen, here the Suns botch the coverage. I'm not sure exactly what they want to do here, but Nurkic lets Okoro get behind him on the roll, and then Durant misses his help rotation to Okoro, and Okoro gets a good shot at the rim. But from a process perspective, this was a big-time win for the Suns, because in the first half, the Cavs were able to have success with spread pick and roll with 3 shooters spreading the court. But now they only have 2 shooters spreading the floor, as Allen is a non-shooter and so he'll just be in the dunker spot. And so it does make sense for Cleveland to use Okoro as the screener, but the Suns are okay with that because Allen will be in the dunker spot and the spacing won't be as good. A few plays later, the Cavs run a set where they'll get it to Okoro near the top, and he'll hand it off to Garland, and then Okoro will roll to the basket. The problem is, with Allen off ball, Durant can just clog the paint off of him, and you actually see Okoro roll and Allen cut to the same spot. And so the spacing is poor here, and it's a turnover. And for the Suns, this is exactly what they want. They're causing confusion for the Cavs and forcing players to be in spots they're not accustomed to being in. Because when the Cavs normally run this play, Okoro and Allen would be swapped. Okoro would be in the corner, and Allen would normally be handing the ball off. But the Cavs are using Okoro as the roller here because they want to involve Nurkic in an action. The problem is Garland and Okoro don't have the same two-man chemistry as Garland and Allen do, and it's a turnover. A few plays later, Okoro will again be used as the screener on ball, but we again see the lack of chemistry. The timing is off, as on the handoff, Okoro doesn't make good contact and Beal is able to slide under the pick. Then Okoro will pop this time, but because Okoro is a so-so shooter, notice how Garland just looks him off and then just drives to his left. But with Allen near the paint, Durant is in great position to help, and Garland is forced to play in a crowd. And all the Cavs can get is a contested look from 3. Also, an advantage of manipulating the matchups is that it creates cross matches. And here's what I mean. So on this play, Nurkic is actually guarding Niang, and Durant is on Allen. And on the miss, notice how Allen has no choice but to guard Durant, and Niang has to take Nurkic. These are favorable cross matches for Phoenix, and here Nurkic immediately looks to rim run and use his size advantage versus Niang. Niang ends up tripping Nurkic on this play, and because Phoenix was in the bonus, Nurkic gets 2 free throws. In the end, the Suns ended up winning this game 117-111, and after the Cavs scored 70 points in the first half, they only scored 41 points in the second half. By changing up the matchups defensively, the Suns were able to completely flip the game. They broke the rhythm of the Cavs offense, and they took away that spread pick and roll that the Cavs were killing the Suns with in the first half. Now to be clear, this game plan wasn't without its downsides. Nurkic is the Suns' best rebounder and a capable rim protector, and they took him off of the opposing center. And because Okoro can hit corner threes, Nurkic couldn't completely ignore him, so this matchup takes Nurkic further from the paint. Also, switching creates its own problems, one of them being the Suns left themselves vulnerable on the defensive glass. And here we see after a switch, a guard has switched on to Jared Allen, though here, Allen can't get the offensive rebound. But ultimately, in this game, the pros of the game plan outweighed the cons, and Phoenix was able to rebound well enough to make it work. Now, let's zoom out a bit and look at this tactic from a bigger picture. One of the most common reasons to change the matchup of your center is to switch the pick and roll, and this is what we just saw. Now, there are different factors that determine if you want to do this defensively, but one thing I've noticed is that it's often most effective versus a certain type of big. I'm talking about the athletic center that is at his best in the pick and roll. Allen is a decent example, and these players are lob threats who often lack a post game. These centers thrive when they can screen and roll and don't have to face a switch. For example, in this Suns-Cavs game, once the Suns started switching Allen's ball screens, the Cavs didn't look to post Allen because that's not a strength of his game, and this limited the options Cleveland had offensively. Also, this type of center is often not a three-point shooting threat, and so in some cases, switching the matchups can turn a dynamic screen and roll big into a spacing liability. In this game, once Phoenix started switching Allen's ball screens, there just wasn't much for him to do except stand near the paint and get in the way. One thing I've noticed is that teams have been using this tactic some versus Dallas. because Luka is such a pick and roll wizard that if you play coverage versus the Luka Lively spread pick and roll, meaning you don't switch it, you're going to give up good shots. Luka is too good of a playmaker, and Lively is too good as a roller. So for example, earlier this season New Orleans played Dallas, and the Pelicans have Herb Jones, one of the best perimeter defenders in the NBA, and so you would think Jones would guard Luka, right? Well no, they started Dyson Daniels and put him on Luka, and Daniels is a terrific defender himself. They put Jones on Lively, who's Dallas' center, and the Pelicans had their center Valanciunas guard Derrick Jones Jr., who's a mediocre shooter. And so from the opening tip, the Pelicans decided they were going to take away Lively as a screener. Because now, if Lively set a pick for Luka, the Pelicans could just switch it. And yeah, now Jones Jr. can set the screen, and the Pelicans can't switch this with Valanciunas, but now, notice as Jones Jr. rolls, Herb Jones is in great position to help because he's guarding Lively, who's a non-shooter. And this game the strategy was effective. Not only were the Pelicans able to take away the Luka Lively pick and roll, but they weaponized Herb Jones as a help defender as he could play free safety off of Lively. Now, there are lots of reasons to change the matchup of your center, but probably the most common one is to match up with the stretch 5. Think of a 5 who's a legit floor spacer and dangerous enough as a shooter to pick and pop. OKC's Chet Holmgren is a good example. For instance here, Chet is defended by DeAndre Ayton, who's a traditional center. And as he goes to set the ball screen, Holmgren will pick and pop. Here, Ayton decides to help in the paint, and so Holmgren gets an open 3. On this play, Ayton stays closer to Holmgren on the perimeter, but that just opens up the paint for OKC. So here, Chet is off ball and away from the play, and notice how he brings Ayton away from the basket as Ayton has to respect the 3. So now when Shea drives, Ayton can't protect the rim and it's a layup. That's why 5s who can shoot are so valuable. And so a lot of teams won't have their center guard Chet. Here for example, the Mavs put Jones Jr., their power forward, on him, and so if Chet sets a pick, now Dallas has a quicker defender on him so they can switch or execute some other pick and roll coverage. And Dallas can do this because OKC starts Josh Giddey, who's a subpar shooter. So the Mavs can put their center Daniel Gafford on Giddey, and Gafford will just ignore Giddey and stay near the goal. This allows Gafford to focus on what he does best, which is protect the rim. One of the concessions of this game plan is that you will give Giddey open 3s. Here Kleba is the Mavs center, and he leaves Giddey wide open to help in the paint. But Giddey is only shooting 34% from 3, which is a career high, and so in order to keep their defensive center close to the basket, this is a shot teams are willing to live with. Well, there you have it, guys. Subjectively, it seems like more and more teams are willing to change the matchup of their center, and the Celtics definitely helped popularize this over the last few years, right? It can limit the pick and roll, the pick and pop, and look, when you can put your center on guards and forwards who struggle to shoot, that just tends to really mess with offenses. Thanks for watching.